Chapter 12 of Her Love from Above. Auntie's Story. Little Miss snuck down the basement steps as the ladies working in the kitchen prepared sandwiches for the upcoming meeting. Typically, those residents desiring fellowship would gather in the lodge every evening, although on set dates twice a month, Bobby Joe would encourage everyone to attend. Sometimes, these scheduled dates were just for fellowships, but at other times, speakers would cover a range of recently requested topics. Newcomers were honored at these gatherings, and sometimes the older residents would share their stories to help the newcomers understand that they were not alone. They needed to know other people understood their pain without judgment. As the laughter from the kitchen faded into the background, Little Miss searched for the treats she'd been smelling all morning. When she found one on the floor beside an unfamiliar metal box, she made quick work of it before following the remaining bits of meaty morsels until she was standing inside the wire box. The trap door snapped shut, causing Little Miss to jump upward and smash her head against the cage's top. She began thrashing in circles, trying to find her way out, but there was not one. "Calm down," Teasel instructed in a soothing voice while lowering toward the mischievous feline. When the Siamese saw the angelic warrior and heard his voice, she stopped moving and waited. "You're smarter than that, but your greedy for meaty snacks got the better of you, didn't it?" His hand passed through the cage's metal bars like they didn't exist as he grabbed Little Miss and pulled her from the cage. "You know you're not supposed to be down here," he scolded, rubbing the purring feline behind her ears. "And now look at the trouble you've found." Moments later, Teasel floated upward and through the ceiling. When he arrived in the upstairs bedchamber where Charlie and Claire were staying, he placed Little Miss on the floor behind the closet door. "Now, behave yourself," he admonished. "Are you about finished?" Claire called into the bathroom. "Jenny said they'd have sandwiches ready by 6. The speaker should be arriving at about that same time." "Yes," Charlie answered. "I've washed my body 3 times, and I think I'm finally clean. Maybe." Claire laughed. "All 3 of you guys should have been arrested for thievery. There was more soil on your bodies than in Ava's veggie beds." Claire sat on the soft bed and examined the hand-carved frame. It was oak, very old and astonishingly beautiful. Bobby Joe had once told her that it was the first bed donated to the ministry, given the year Haven's Rest was founded. Being a thick, handmade, solid oak piece of furniture, it was enormously heavy. She and Charlie often teased that if a tornado passed through, which wouldn't have happened because Haven's Rest was in the mountains, it would be the only piece of furniture left behind. "You look like escapees from The Walking Dead," she called. "I bet we did." Charlie blew his nose. "But I think my inside stole more dirt than my outside. I might need to take some allergy medicine tonight." Claire rested her head on a pillow. "Did you see Ava's expression when she saw the greenhouse? It was priceless." Charlie nodded as he exited the bathroom. She was glowing as tears were flowing. "Poet and didn't know it," Claire teased. She repositioned her head. "Ava deserves to be happy. She lived through hell. I don't know what I would have done if I'd been in her shoes. She talked a little about her husband today." "Oh?" Charlie uttered, tossing the bath towel aside to begin dressing. "Buck said she hasn't talked much to anyone. I hope that means she's starting to open up. She'll heal faster if she does." Claire breathed a heavy sigh. "Charlie, she was married to a monster. I mean, a real monster. How do you heal from something like that? He should be 6 feet under or rotting in a dungeon." He thrust his arm through his shirt sleeve. "Do you think she'll press charges?" Claire shook her head. "I doubt it." She sat up and patted the pillow where there seemed to be a lump. "I seriously doubt it. She just wants to forget he exists." If she never sees him again on this side of eternity, it would be too soon. And unless he seriously changes, she'll not see him in eternity either. They won't be going in the same direction. Charlie picked up the comb and began running it through his hair. "You know," he said, his law enforcement side surfacing, "if she doesn't press charges, he'll be free to do it again to someone else." "I know," Claire admitted, "but after what I heard today, I won't be the one throwing that stone. If I'd been in her shoes, I'd never want to see him again, not even in a courtroom." The lump in the pillow wouldn't smooth down, so she patted it more forcefully. "The physical part was horrible," she continued, "but some of the other things?" Claire swallowed hard. "When we decorated her bedroom with what she had left of her keepsakes, the few things he didn't destroy, she referenced some of the sexual abuse. She didn't give too many details, but what she did say spoke volumes." "I wonder what attracted her to him in the first place," Charlie said. "I think she mistook his controlling nature for a caring one," Claire commented. "And they didn't date very long before they were married. She wanted away from her stepmom seriously bad, and he pushed hard for a fast marriage. Between those two reasons, they were married really quickly." She again patted the lump on the pillow. "She jumped out of the pan and straight into a blazing fire." "Her stepmom was abusive too?" Charlie asked, now digging in his suitcase for a pair of socks. "Yes," Claire softly said, "but she couldn't hurt Ava like Ed did. Her father intervened when she lived with them, but that woman never claimed to love her. Ed? She thought Ed was her Prince Charming, the one to rescue her from her stepmother. At least, she thought that until the first week of their marriage. She said it was like he had a lobotomy on their honeymoon. She went to bed with Dr. Jekyll and woke up with Mr. Hyde." Charlie nodded. "Auntie said that's what happened to her. She even used the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde analogy. Everyone thought her husband was the creme de la creme. Abusers are tremendous actors. When she tried to explain what was happening, no one would listen. Her husband always made sure her bruises were hidden beneath clothing, and when they were visible, ones that couldn't be hidden, he kept her away from the public eye. Buck said that's pretty much Ava's story too." "What was Auntie's story?" Claire asked. "I've never heard it." "She married a man named Frank." "Frank," Claire repeated as she pushed against the lump in the pillow. "Yes, Frank. When I was young, I couldn't understand why she never remarried after Frank. She was beautiful, both inside and out. She would have been a catch for anyone. I don't know all the details, but from what I've picked up through the years, he was extremely abusive." "Mercy." Claire's voice was soft. "How could anyone hurt such a loving and giving lady like Auntie?" "Why any man hurts any woman is beyond me," Charlie replied. He paused, and the look on his face said his mind was a million miles away. Finally, he returned to the present. "As you know, divorce was rare in that day, but I think she was ready to leave him regardless of the shame it would put on her reputation. Thankfully, he was in an accident that took his life before she had to make that decision. And, might I add, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy." Claire frowned. "What happened?" "What happened?" he repeated. "One night, apparently after beating Auntie to within an inch of her life, Frank decided to leave with a load of furniture. Most people think he thought she was dead and was getting out of Dodge, but that's just a guess. They figured he wanted it to look like someone broke into the house and killed her while he was away on a job. He drank far too much to be driving, which was a common occurrence, but regardless, he climbed into his truck and took off. The next morning, they found his rig a few miles down the road. It was demolished." "Was anyone else hurt?" "No," Charlie answered, "just him. He ran it off a cliff. When my dad and a fellow officer went to their house to let Auntie know Frank was dead, they found her body. They thought initially that she was dead, and I guess her survival was touch and go for quite a while. When she came out from the coma, she was different. At least, that's what I've heard." "How so?" Claire asked. Charlie glanced out a nearby window. "This place is beautiful, peaceful." "Yes," Claire agreed. "It's blessed. God's blessings were on Auntie and this place. It'd have to be with a ministry like this." "How so?" he repeated, thinking of her previous question. Claire pushed the wayward strand of curly hair from her face and turned in his direction. "How so what?" "Your question. How was Auntie different?" He sighed. Her smile was gone. Mom said the light in her eyes had been vanishing for years, little by little, but when she left the hospital that day, it was completely gone. I guess she stopped talking, sort of remained silent for most of the time, and that's saying something for someone as outgoing and talkative as Auntie. "Auntie? Quiet? I can't imagine anything stifling such a beautiful personality." "Neither can I," Charlie agreed. "But it was before my time. I'm just repeating Mom's words." "What brought the light back?" "Jesus," Charlie replied. "Before she married Frank, she was a strong person who relied on herself more than Christ. After years of torture and nearly losing her life, she did a lot of thinking and praying. In the end, she learned to lean on Him. She told me once that had she not released her emotions to the Lord, her pain would have eaten her alive. I suppose she faced the reality of what happened and decided to use her greatest hurt to be her greatest strength, so she could help others. She let go of her anger, ignored other people's harsh criticisms and judgments against her for things that were out of her control, like getting beaten to a bloody pulp numerous times, and learned from everything that happened. She became a huge advocate for victims of domestic violence. She even rallied with others to help change legislation for victims. After that, she created this place for people transitioning out of violent situations. That's the only Auntie I've ever known." "Why didn't she leave her husband before he nearly killed her?" "She did," Charlie answered, "several times, but he controlled the finances, and she would tire of sleeping in the car." Claire's eyes crinkled. He'd come back, apologize, promise he would never do it again, and then tell her how much he loved her and couldn't live without her. She'd give him another chance, which put him back in the driver's seat, so he'd do it all over again. It was a never-ending cycle, and each time she returned, the violence became worse. "I don't claim to understand the mind of someone in an abusive situation," Claire admitted, "but seriously, somewhere along the way, you just gotta kick their sorry butt out the door." Auntie said it's not always that easy. They have all kinds of nasty tricks up their sleeves. They're professionals at what they do, and they have a lifetime of practice. So their victims are usually so confused by their behaviors that they don't know which end is up. "Tricks?" Claire quizzed. "Yes," Charlie replied while thinking back in time. The final time she left, before his death, he went to her uncle for help. He was a preacher and supposedly led Frank to Christ. Then the uncle demanded that she stay with him because he was a changed man. He said she would be sinning against God if she didn't go back to him. So, while claiming to be a Christian, he turned most of her family against her. She was in a trap and no money with no place to go. Then he pleaded for her to forgive him and give him just one more chance. At this point, she was penniless and sleeping in her car. After enduring all the pressure from people who supposedly loved her, she gave up and decided to go back. In that era, her hands were pretty much tied. "But she knew the truth," Claire argued. "I still don't get it." Auntie said it's called trauma bonding. It's sort of like Stockholm Syndrome. It happens when a person is living in a severely abusive situation. And if you've never experienced it yourself or know someone who was trauma bonded, it's hard to understand. Trauma bonding is why so many abused people return to their abusers. Claire punched the lump in the pillow again and then spouted, "Why would someone demand their family member stay in an abusive relationship?" "Because they don't know any better," Charlie answered. "Her uncle wasn't a trained counselor. He was a preacher, and others listened to him. Also, from what I understand, her husband was a very convincing liar. He claimed that she exaggerated the abuse, and since she had never mentioned it to anyone, they had no way of knowing her silence was out of fear and not because the situation wasn't real." Abusive people bully their victims into silence while planting seeds of doubt about the victim's character for future harvest in the minds of any potential allies. Then, when the truth emerges, it's such a shock that most people, family members included, have trouble believing it's true. That's what Frank did. Auntie told me once that the abuser is often so good at manipulating the victim that they begin doubting their own reality. They're lucky if they know which way is up and which is down. They begin to think that maybe they are the problem. Even Auntie's family members, the ones who acknowledged something was wrong, still thought she was exaggerating the situation. It took her near murder before they listened. "Why?" Claire asked. "Why would they believe him over her when they had known her their entire lives?" He'd been paving the path to his acquittal their entire marriage. While Auntie remained silent about the abuse, Frank constantly hinted about how unstable she was and how she was making his life miserable to anyone who would listen. Then, when she finally had enough and left that final time, her uncle found out and jumped in to save the day. Once he supposedly led Frank to Christ, he believed that nothing the man had done before his decision to accept Christ mattered. Actually, Charlie tightened his belt as he added, "Auntie said that one of the final steps an abusive person takes to keep his spouse from leaving is claiming they found religion, especially if the spouse is a believer. Frank did that, and 8 months after Auntie was pressured into returning, he nearly killed her. Had the police not shown up when they did, he would have succeeded." "Most people, whether they're Christian or not, don't hurt other people," Claire argued, pausing in thought as she considered Auntie's circumstances. "No," she finally concluded, "an abuser is an abuser, whether or not they claim to be a Christian. I would never pressure someone into staying in an abusive relationship, whether physical, mental, verbal, or sexual. And if they choose to go back, it should be after a great deal of time that verifies the person has truly changed." "I agree," Charlie said as he leaned against the tall bureau with his hands folded across his chest. "She didn't talk with me about what happened, but she did tell my mom. The thing I'll never forget is that, in Auntie's opinion, the verbal and emotional abuse was the worst of all. I don't understand why she ranked it above physical, but she did. I guess you have to live with it to understand it. Auntie said the physical scars are easy to verify, but emotional and mental scars are invisible and harder to prove. That makes them more questionable and thus harder to recover from because more people tend to doubt your story or think you did something to provoke your abuser." Claire studied a picture of Haven's Rest hanging on the wall as she considered his words. It fits. Everything she knew about Auntie now made sense. Her ministry, how she loved helping abused people, her compassion, and her refusal to date or remarry after Frank. "This is an ideal location to run a rescue for abused people, male or female," Claire softly said. "I sure hope Paige doesn't manage to hurt it." "She won't," Charlie promised. "I'll make sure of it." "What's wrong with this pillow?" she suddenly blurted, her anger over Auntie and Ava's abuse getting the better of her emotions. She smacked it again with her fist, but the lump remained. "Ouch!" she protested. "That hurt. I don't remember there being—" She lifted the pillow and something black caught her attention. She examined the object. "A sock?" She muttered to herself in a questioning manner. She squinted at Charlie. "Did you put this here?" "No," he mused. "I guess little miss has been busy." He turned. That cat and her socks. He held up the only 2 socks from his suitcase he could find. One was black, and the other was dark gray. "Looks like I'm going mismatched again tonight." "I officially fit in with the other residents of this place." Claire didn't comment on his mismatched socks. Instead, she lifted the black sock from beneath her pillow and bounced it. "Look," she said, "it's heavy." Charlie laughed. "She must have felt guilty and decided to replace one of your socks with someone else's plus interest." He examined the sock a bit closer. "That looks expensive. I'd venture to say someone's going to miss it." Claire bounced the sock again. "It's really heavy. Since when do cats put things inside of socks?" Charlie watched as Claire untied the top of the sock and poured out its contents. "Oh, oh my," she exclaimed. "Those are family heirlooms," he said with fire in his eyes. "They've been in our family for hundreds of years. They're probably worth more than all of Auntie's other possessions put together." "What are they doing in a sock under my pillow?" Charlie took the sock from Claire's hand. "My guess? Little Miss has been up to her mischief in someone else's room." "And the sock?" Claire informed. "This is a Bottetta Veneta. Those things are crazy expensive." Charlie examined the jewelry. "These were under your pillow." "Yes," Claire answered. "In the sock. You watched me pull them out." "Very few people know about this jewelry, and only 2 of those people aren't trustworthy." "Paige and Madison," Claire offered. Charlie nodded. "I don't think Madison has seen them since she was a child, but I guarantee you that Paige has refreshed her memory concerning them. You told Paige there were cameras everywhere, and if she stole anything or didn't return what she had already taken, you'd have her arrested." "I bet they were in Auntie's room," Charlie replied. "Paige doesn't know the combination to the safe, and there are no cameras in the bedrooms." "I assumed they were locked in the safe with the other valuables." "Apparently not." Charlie now examined the sock. "You say these are expensive?" Claire nodded. "My college roommate was filthy rich. They were the only brand she would wear." "Then it's got to be Paige. I doubt Johnny can afford that kind of money for Madison's socks." "What are you going to do?" Charlie remained silent as he pondered the situation. He knew who the thief was, but that didn't count as evidence. "Nothing, for now," he finally concluded, "other than block these in the safe so she can't get them again." "She knows little Miss has a thing for socks," Claire remarked. "Why would she leave this where the cat could get it?" "I don't know. Maybe she didn't think little Miss would mess with a sock filled with heavy items." He flapped his hand. "I wish we had some way of proving that sock is hers." "She might not know it's missing yet," Claire suggested. "That could be to our advantage." "That's what I was thinking. We need to figure out a way to use that, but for now, I'll let Buck and Jenny know what's happened." "You're right," Claire said. "Socks aren't evidence unless you can prove who they belong to." Charlie looked at her. "What are you thinking?" he asked. It was easy to see that her mind was in overdrive, and her expression said that whatever she was concocting was good. "There's another sock that matches this one." "Yes," he agreed. "Socks usually come in pairs." She continued, ignoring his humor. "When I find a type of sock I really like, I usually purchase more than one pair." Charlie nodded slightly. "So do I." "I bet you that she has several of these." She glanced at the sock. "Black is a well-used color. Personally, if I throw away one of my good socks because it has a hole in it, I keep its mate so when one of the other socks gets a hole in it, it leaves you with a matching pair." Charlie finished her sentence. "I do the same thing." Claire nodded, a twinkle surfacing in her eyes. She paid over $400 for these. That makes this sock worth $200. Holy moly, Charlie bellowed. That's a crazy waste of money. Claire giggled. Yep, but it's perfect for us. If she thinks this sock is still hidden wherever she put it, she'll think little miss grabbed its mate. The sock table, Charlie exclaimed, suddenly grasping Claire's idea. There are 2 security cameras in the main room downstairs. Paige will want her sock back, so we can catch her on camera when she goes for it. Charlie pulled Claire into a firm embrace. Have I ever told you how much I love you? She giggled as her hand stretched around his neck. I'm not sure, she teased. Maybe you should tell me again. And I love how smart you are, he added before kissing her. Now, let's put that jewelry in a less expensive sock and lock it in Auntie's safe. And set our little trap, Claire giggled. Charlie's eyes sparkled. And set our little trap. He kissed Claire once more before whispering, just so you know, I'm locking the door tonight and pushing that old rocking chair in front of it. No cats allowed. Claire giggled. Miss me, do ya? A soft purr caught their attention. Speak of the devil, Claire mused as she loosened her hold on Charlie and picked up the Siamese. You're a mischievous little thing, but I'll never complain about it again. As long as you give us our privacy tonight, you can take as many of my socks as you want. I'll second that, Charlie joked. I'll even bring a few extra pairs for her next time. Colorful ones, Claire suggested. I've noticed that she prefers the colorful ones the most. At least, that's what the sock table seems to indicate. Colorful ones it is, Charlie declared.